Well, thank you for accepting our invitation for this video call and for accepting to share your domain knowledge with Cassini. I should thank you from our founder, Mr. Raghuram, also. So, uh, for our audience, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, Praveen. Hi,
Hi.
everybody. My name is Joy Chervatur. I am independent board director and advisor to MSMEs and a mentor to startups. I was the chief marketing officer of Larsen and Toubro, their smart cities and communications infra business. And prior to that, I worked with many of the telecommunication companies like Vodafone, Reliance, Bharti, and Tata Communications. So you can say that my background is largely in digital Internet of Things and telecoms infra and services. Right now, I run my own company. It's called Genrev Global. It is an IoT company. So I run an IoT advisory, plus provide a few services in the Internet of Things and artificial intelligence. That's just me. Joy.
Great, Joy. Thank you for your introduction. So, I think you have heard our beloved Prime Minister's speech on the other day, where he was talking about go local and be vocal about the local. So, what do you think? What would be the impact of this go local concept on construction and infra industries?
Okay, so let us discuss then on
Yeah,
our PM's call for go local
yeah,
and its impact on infra companies in India. Yeah, fair. So if you look at the trends in the in infrastructure or in the whole nation itself, rapid urbanization has been the defining trend of the 21st century. Of course, with the recent pandemic and migration of labor back to the villages, we need to see how that plays out. But my sense is that urbanization is here to stay, and it is accompanied by equally rapid proliferation of sophisticated technologies and things like data analytics, which also put pressure on environment itself. So old business models are actually getting shaken, and the way we are thinking about infrastructure design, how it is delivered, is also changing rapidly. With a call for go local, I think we can look at two or three major changes in the infrastructure space itself, and rightly so. While globalization offers many benefits, the complexities that we face in our cities due to the urbanization, due to the demographic shifts, due to climate change, due to economic and social disparity, all these complexities require solutions that are more local in scope. So we would have needed to go local anyway, in my sense, but I think the call has come at the right time. And infrastructure is fundamentally a story of how we evolve in response to emerging needs. So two or three areas that I want to look at in terms of how go local could play out in India would be in the areas of energy and its related infrastructure. A little bit on transportation and infrastructure for transport, and maybe a little bit on things like water and wastewater, how the infrastructure for wastewater and water. All this is given my background in smart cities. So I've seen this happening in front of my eyes. So I thought this would be a good place to discuss this. So if you were to look at energy, the centuries-old utility model focuses on transporting, delivering energy from a centralized generation facility or a power plant. And usually this would be in some remote location. And it will take it and deliver it to cities which are at some distance from where the generation happens. This model is prone to disruption natural disasters. There have been talks recently of cyber attacks, which will upset the utility grid and things like that. So you can see that the centralized model of energy distribution was anyway getting ready for some kind of disruption. And I think my sense is that we are now headed in the direction of localized microgrids or distributed energy systems. So basically what happens is in municipalities or in campuses or even for building specific uses, we can see micro facilities for generation and consumption within that local area itself. So energy need not be transported over larger distances. This is also facilitated by the lowering cost of storage of energy locally. So now it is a little cheaper to store energy also locally. So individuals and communities now can directly enter the energy market as prosumers. They're both consumers and they're providers. If you see the electricity boards now, they do allow individuals, housing societies to install meters that can measure the flow of current both ways, when they generate and supply out to the grid, and when they are a net consumer. So I would say this move towards local grids, towards microgrids, would be a significant feature of the utility infrastructure going forward. When you go to transportation infrastructure, I can see a similar story playing out. Far from the days when there used to be large areas which would be centrally planned as far as traffic flows are concerned, we are now moving to a situation where the smart traffic infrastructure that exists, that is being installed in many of the cities now, some of them under the Smart Cities program, some of them independent of any Smart Cities initiative. The smart traffic allows for management of traffic within a smaller area. An example would be a smart parking facility, for instance. So you install sensors, IoT run sensors, which then indicate through an app to a commuter that a parking space is available in such and such a slot. And when that parking space is occupied, then the app updates accordingly. So you can actually manage the micro traffic in the form of a smart parking solution. And the same thing applies to various other forms of traffic management. The other area where smart traffic is now coming in is in terms of multimodal transport. So there are apps now that are coming in which actually show a commuter who's arriving by, say, a metro as to when is the next feeder bus expected. And some of the smarter cities are actually enabling, say, one card travel across multiple modes. You can come by metro, you can pay using the same card to travel by a feeder bus, and maybe even a bicycle sharing scheme or a ride sharing scheme at the other end. So you actually have multimodal transport, which is also being managed now at a micro level. So transport infrastructure could be going local. And the final example I wanted to talk about was how water infrastructure can be reimagined and localized. And water, of course, is fundamental to life and health of our communities. It's a resource that the need for which is growing steadily, and there is always a threat that there would be scarcity, and this water scarcity is expected to be one of the challenges of the 21st century. But a decentralized water infrastructure, for instance, can protect the public health and the environment. These systems typically have lower capital and maintenance costs for communities. So you may have heard of apartment buildings. I am aware of one near where I live. It's a high-rise apartment building in our city, for example. It has its own wastewater plant in the basement. It collects stormwater from the roof. The treated wastewater and stormwater is then used in the building itself for toilet flushing, for irrigation, and for cooling. So here is a micro water treatment and circulation infrastructure at a building level. Now you can imagine how that works out at campus levels, at local area levels, and maybe you can confine it to a city level and things like that. So if you look at if I were to quickly summarize whatever I was discussing about going local, one of course is localizing your inputs, localizing your methods and tools of building infra and delivering and maintaining infra. I'm talking of the way infra is imagined itself going more local, whether it is with reference to power, microgrids, or with reference to transport, local area transport, or with reference to water and its management. Basically, the point I'm making is that communities will get increasingly empowered, and that is the trend that we can see when we hear somebody say, "Let us go local." The other aspect of going local is that if you look at infrastructure and if you look at the software that we use when we manage large infra projects, many of those software are actually a little dated now, and most of them are owned by or provided by companies that are not Indian in origin. So a software for project lifecycle management like Cassini, which is an Indian product, would be an ideal answer to a go local call. So I would imagine that infrastructure providers in India would be looking for these kind of solutions as we start looking at more and more ways to go local. That would be my response to your question about the brilliance request to go local.
Thank you for recognizing Cassini as local product of India. We are proud to say that. And how can these companies prepare their teams post this lockdown, particularly about implementing the processes in their company? Do you think it will help post lockdown?
I would imagine so. See, what is happening is that the several weeks of lockdown that we have undergone in the recent past, I have seen businesses starting to establish a culture of collaboration among employees as well as with their clients and associates. And they use various online tools and resources, and that use is increasing. It's more than ever before. So that is one clear trend that is emerging from the lockdown as far as businesses are concerned. We can see social distancing as a norm, and it's a new norm. My sense is it is here to stay, at least till a cure or vaccination emerges for COVID-19. So social distancing would be the second trend. The third trend is people are more conscious now of maintaining personal hygiene for their own safety and for those of the ones that are near them. And the fourth trend, if I were to say that, would be employees are now beginning to enjoy slightly better work-life balance, especially with many people now working from home. So these are the four trends that I see as a factor of the lockdown. So therefore, once we are exiting the lockdown and the business cycle is beginning, business owners, whether they are product businesses or project businesses, I think need to look at, say, 2 or 3 important points for the organization post lockdown period. First one, of course, is that make sure that your workplace is safe and sanitized. This would be, I think, an absolute imperative for the health and safety of your employees and for the customers that visit you and so on. So there are a whole series of things that you need to do to make sure that you have a safe and sanitized workplace. The second would be, I would say, classify your employees in terms of their ability now to work in an environment, in an office environment. What I mean thereby is still the cure is found. It might be a smart idea for organizations to identify employees who are more susceptible to COVID-like infections, especially people with respiratory illnesses or what they call as pre-existing conditions or comorbidities, and ensure that they are provided a safer environment to work. They are given preference if there is an opportunity to work from home, for instance. So that would be the second. Second is classify your employees and identify the ones that would need special treatment. And the third would be, how do you actually minimize business-related travels, and how do you improve or how do you invest in technologies that can help your teams to work better without having to actually go to the site frequently and things like that. And in a place, and in that space, where we can deploy good digital tools, a good PLM tool would be absolutely necessary for an infrastructure company that is coming out of a lockdown and moving into a post-lockdown phase. So the point related to digital tools and online collaboration will be a long-term growing need. That is my sense. And Cassini's PLM solution is geared to address the needs of a post-lockdown world for project management. That is my submission.
Thank you very much, Joy. So, what might be the challenges these companies might face for this paradigm shift? So, what are the major challenges you think they may face here?
Okay. So, if you were to look at challenges, and the way I've understood the question, just explain and just clarify if I've understood it wrong.
Yeah.
You're asking what would be the challenges that a company faces in a post-lockdown scenario. Is that the question?
Yes. It's implementing these processes, because post-lockdown, if they have to implement this, because these processes might not be there for a few of the companies. After this lockdown, they would like to implement these processes. So, what are the major challenges in implementing these processes in their companies?
Yeah. Okay. And that's an interesting question. So my theory or my submission has always been that while the software works 99% of the time, the 1% where it fails is when the implementation is not done properly. So I think we need to be very, very conscious of the kind of challenges that can occur during the implementation, and even later if we don't pay attention to how it is being used across the organization. The first challenge would be in terms of integrating the various different systems and different devices on which these systems reside within the organization. So you would find that the accounts team is using, say, a software which is residing on one unconnected or standalone PC somewhere. At each project site, the project manager has their own system. Some of them work on basic tools like Excel sheets and things like that. To ones that work on, say, cloud-based software out of their own interest, or because a particular customer has asked for it. So the first challenge would be to integrate the data that lies in different formats across the organization. The software that, the different versions of software that may exist across the same organization. And the complexity that is brought in because of customer requirements. Somehow the software needs to interface with customer systems and things like that. So there's a historic challenge. There is so much data lying around outside. How can you bring that in? Having brought that in, if we are successful in bringing or porting that data into our system, the next challenge would be to ensure that everybody related to the project, whether it is an internal resource, whether it's a customer, or whether it's a vendor, they are trained to use the software appropriately. They are given access to the right modules of the software so that they can be using it most effectively. And there is a system whereby the data is updated in near real time into the software. There are many systems that still work on paper and pencil, especially when it comes to project sites and things like that. How do we ensure that even that data which lies outside of any electronic or digital system, how is that ported into the software in near real time so that somebody who's taking a decision or who wants to look at the whole picture can have access to that? So that would be the second challenge. The third, and to my mind, a big challenge would be, especially when it comes to infrastructure company, is how do we ensure that, especially in the remotest site, which may not have, say, power supply continuously, or which may have challenges of facing inclement weather or poor connectivity and things like that. How do we ensure that even that site has adequate access to your company's system so that the software or the system across the company functions as one piece and all the inputs come in at the right time? So that would be the third challenge. Once you implement and make the system up, how do you ensure that it works in the most remote site? These would be, to my mind, two or three areas that we need to focus on when it comes to implementing the software, especially for project management and all that. And make sure that it is implemented not just within your organization, but also give access to your vendors and customers and your project sites and so on.
Thank you, Jeff. With this, you have answered most of my queries. And one last question, Joy. So, if you want to suggest anything to the industry stalwarts or the companies, what would that be? That can be at this juncture of the time. Are there any suggestions you want to give to the industry stalwarts?
Okay, so I'm sure there are very smart people in most of the project organizations who would have thought of this even earlier or by themselves. But given my background in management in a company that manages extremely large projects, and given the experience that I now have in dealing with some of the startups who are in the infrastructure space that I advise and mentor, I would like to probably suggest, say, 4 or 5 points, which I think would be of use when it comes to implementing processes in infra companies to improve their quality and productivity. These 4 or 5 points are like this. The first one is, whatever technology you are going to bring it in quickly, bring it on board, and bring it across the organization, and bring it in quickly, if possible, all at the same time. If you do it in bits and pieces, you will find that the benefit that you get of having an overall picture is not, you don't get that benefit till you have all the components on board. But then if you can bring it on board, then do it quickly and bring it across the organization. Second is, you start using that data. You might feel that the data itself is not complete or it's inadequate, it is not current, slightly dated and things like that. But you need to start using that data even in your planning and in your processes. As you go along, you will realize that the data quality keeps improving with use. And once people start seeing you as the senior management using that data and relying upon that data for decisions, you will find that the quality of data that is available through the system improves because more and more people are contributing to that. So that is what I would say. So once you have the system running in whatever shape and form, start using it, using the data in it, start using that system. Even if you feel that's a little rickety or it's a little, it's not fully updated and things like that, still use that so that it then becomes cleaned up that much faster. The third would be constantly keep training people on your processes, on the systems, because you will have newer and newer people joining at all points of at various points of time. And many of these may be untrained laborers and things like that. But you need to have a process in place whereby you keep constantly training your people in terms of using this. And finally, I would say you need to focus a lot on safety training, especially when it comes to the going forward. I think safety would be more and more important. So we will need to invest heavily in improving the safety training and providing more of the safety training. Finally, I would say communicate better. Use your PLM system itself to share reports, generate reports, and then share those as a means of communication. Do your review basis that data. Once you use that in your communication, you will realize that your initial goal of implementing software like this, where you'll have an overview of the organization, a correct and a real-time view, will actually become true as you go along. So just to quickly summarize these 4 or 5 points that I said, first, bring the technology on board, bring it on board faster, don't delay in doing it, and look for company-wide implementation. Second would be use more of that data in whatever shape and form it is. Initially, it will not be in good shape, but use that data for your planning and for your daily activities and reviews and things like that. You will find that the quality of the data keeps improving. More and more people start using it. Use constantly train people so that they become more adept at using these systems and they can follow the processes easily. So the new people that come on board also get the benefit of this training. Fourth would be improve the safety training, and that's a very, very important aspect. And the final thing would be use this data in all your communication, whether it is rewards and recognition, whether it is contracts and reporting and communication. use this data to communicate, then you will realize that it becomes a very, very valuable thing for your entire organization.
Thank you very much for your insights. And I would like to reiterate a small line about Cassini PLM, which is Project Lifecycle Management, where we have developed a cloud-based project lifecycle management for the infrastructure company and construction company, where even a normal employees or the field employees can easily input their data and they maintain some regular process. It will even the user interface is so good that it is as equal as any social media, because nowadays everyone uses social media platform, right? It is as simple as that. Our interface is very simple, can be used by any person in the entire construction and infrastructure industry. In the next section, Joy, I would like to give a demo of our product so that even our audience will get a look and feel of the product. And thank you very much for your time, Joy. It was a pleasure. It was pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Praveen. I had a great time during our discussion.
Yeah.
And I look forward to the product demo that you were talking about just now. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a great day, Joy. Bye.